So I actually can't determine what other people mean when they speak about seeking. I can only speak about my own interpretation of what people mean when they speak about seeking. Really. I obviously didn't think enough when I wrote that. Or it was just perfect. Yeah. So seeking to me is actually the separation. And to me, it's actually the identification with self. So the seeking is what creates the identification with the body-mind mechanism. So the body-mind mechanism has conditioning. It has traumas, it has joys, it has ways of being, it has habits and conditions that are genetic and socially conditioned. But then there's also this seeking element which makes consciousness and the personality structure become entwined. And who knows what comes first? It's a bit like a chicken and an egg. If there is the entwinement and then seeking arises, or there's entwinement or the seeking and then this arises. But they're kind of the same thing. And seeking is this energy that feels like happiness and my freedom comes through time. Whereas happiness and freedom is this present moment, is what you are. It's so profound. It is this, it is consciousness. And this is true freedom. This is the only freedom you find in this life. But most of the time people think that freedom is something that you get in the future and avoid from the past. So actions that you've done in the past maybe cage you or free you, and actions that you're going to get in the future either cage or free you. And there is this holding on to that story of you and an over investment in it, a belief that you have to make your story work, that you have to do things in order to be lovable, you have to do things in order to be free, or not do things. Whereas actually freedom is this moment. It's not a time-bound thing. Pleasure and pain is time-bound. So if I now got a knife and stabbed my leg, that is time-bound. In a way, everything's not time-bound. Everything is this moment, but it's seemingly time-bound, as in it's going to fricking hurt. It might even kill me. So that will have an effect in time, and that will create pain in time, more than likely. Could create pleasure. We do not know. But more than likely, from assessing past experiences, stabbing my leg would be painful. But we can't guarantee that. We're never 100% certain of anything, because life is really freaking mysterious. Like, we don't even know why it's happening, and let alone anything else. We don't even know who we are. Like, we can know who we are, but we can't actually step outside of who we are and look at who we are and be like, oh, look, that's who I am. We just are who we are. We can't actually know it separate from it. I'm getting complex. Yeah, so seeking feels like an agitation. It's not resting deeply now. It's like an agitation in time. Like, this isn't quite enough. There is something else that needs to be got. So it's actually the opposite to deep rest. So that deep rest that you think when you pay off your house, when you get out of debt, when you find your lover, when you have kids, when you travel the world, when the C word is gone, when you get your partner to do this, or you get married, whatever it is that you think you need, you think that, or you imagine that that is going to be the deep rest. That is going to get you there. Whereas the truth is, nothing's going to get you there. It is here. I remember TP, Tony Parsons, he always used to say, I don't know if he still says it, like everyone believes that God is inside the church or the chapel or the stupa, the monument, that the religious experience, what you're looking for is in a place, a destination. And he used to say, and what most people fail to perceive is that God is putting on your Sunday clothes for church, stepping into the car, the feeling of the steering wheel, the driving along the road, the sights, the sounds, the visions, stepping out of the stepping out of the car, walking up the steps and entering the church. Like it's not just found in a place. I remember there's this really beautiful poem from Rumi. That's basically, it's not in the stupa, it's not in the yoga position, it's not in bending your legs around your neck or doing 1,000 prostrations. It's here, what you are now. It doesn't mean that you don't do practices in order to become more grounded and centered and live a better human life. It's that freedom isn't time bound. Freedom is this moment. God, so profound, so deep. We take these words often, I know I used to, like, yeah, freedom is this moment, this moment. But it's so deep. And when it's seen to be in time, then seeking arises. So when you lose connection with what you are as consciousness, then the seeking arises, and then there is a sticking to the personality. When waking up and when that detachment happens, there can still be seeking patterns. Like I would say I have still old seeking patterns acting out, because it's a habit. Like the body is conditioned for me, for the first 30 years of my life to, if it feels tired or uncomfortable, to go towards the food cupboard. Although that's really falling away now. Since my bump on head, I've had a profound change with food. It knocked. I was never like that bad with food, but I stopped eating sugar completely and started only eating slow released food. And then I'm obviously mostly a vegan. I do eat eggs and sometimes have accidents with cheeses. And I don't eat food that's quick releasing sugar generally. So it's really limited my food in a way, but also super healthy now. But I know the last few days I was very, very tired and I'd overworked and overpushed myself. And so then therefore, and it was also the weather got colder. There was a temptation to go towards food. And that to me I would see as a habit, and maybe an old seeking pattern, but also a habit as well. Yeah. So the body does that. But it's not, there's nothing that's going to free you. This moment is the deep rest. This moment. So whatever you're daydreaming about, isn't it? Even if you're daydreaming of enlightenment, that is seeking. Doesn't mean, I'm not saying you don't buy a car or you don't plan things with your partner or your children or go on holiday. It's just not going to give you what you're looking for. Nothing is going to give you what you're looking for. What you're looking for is always this moment. And there's nothing outside that. This is enough. And so what is this? Like I spoke about it in the meditation today. So this moment is actually really bizarre, and it's not an activity that you do. Even though sometimes you can practice activities to be more present, and I'm not opposed to that. Actually, this moment isn't something you do. It's something that you already inherently are. So when you wake up in the morning, you don't turn on consciousness. You don't turn on this world. This world turns on, and then you, the illusory you, the personality structure and the character appears in that. But you don't turn that on. And that's because it's something that you inherently are, beyond the personality, beyond doership, beyond control, beyond anything human. It's there, it's what you are. So if we go with consciousness rather than this moment, you could say consciousness is inherently there. So you wake up and we think that consciousness gets turned on. It's not actually the consciousness gets turned on, it's that things come back. Consciousness was already there, it was just in deep rest. It was in non-existence. But just the things come back. And the consciousness isn't separate from the things. It is all the things. It's everything. But it's not something you do. So normally people say, I'm being conscious, and then you believe that you're moving your consciousness around the world. So you're looking at things and you're doing things and you're moving your attention. But that's actually what I call personal awareness. So to move the lens, so to move your attention from your big toes to your computer, to the sound of my voice, to the sounds outside, that is personal awareness that's being moved. But prior to that, there is a consciousness that's conscious of that personal awareness, that's conscious of everything that's behind me without thought. And it switches on in the morning time. And then often what happens is then you have to remember who you are. You sort of wake up and you're like, where am I? Who am I? And you slowly come back. But the consciousness is there. The consciousness is there in every experience, and it never moves. The world moves. So if you walk out of here and go into another room, the world moves, but you're always in the same consciousness. So the body seemingly moves through the world, but you are always in the same consciousness. You could think of it a little bit like a game that you're playing on the computer. Even though it looks like you're moving through a world in that game, so say if it's a 3D game, it looks like your character is moving through a world. It's actually just the lights on the screen changing to create different shapes and images. So you could say that the whole game is this still light, this one light, changing formation, giving the appearance of all this movement of world happening. I'm not saying that's exactly what consciousness is doing. I don't really know how consciousness functions. But this consciousness is always still, and the world moves through it. It's always here. And that consciousness is in every experience. You can't switch off, just be like, hang on, let me switch off consciousness for a moment. You can kind of like lose personal awareness, like get lost in thought and not have focus in personal awareness. But consciousness can't be shut off. Even if you're really lost in thought and really suffering, the consciousness is still there watching everything. And it's not behind the eyes. Often when you first get into the subject, they say behind, behind, behind. Consciousness is back, back, back. But it's actually forward, forward, forward. The consciousness is the wall, it is the blind, that's what I'm looking at, it is the cupboard, it is the seat, it is the body, it's everything that's experienced. It's so cool. It is everything, the consciousness. And the consciousness is not actually a thing, so you could eventually get consciousness down to nothing appearing as everything. Because consciousness isn't actually something that you can grasp, it is actually the appearance of everything. And a knowing of the appearances of everything. But it doesn't it's not actually a thing that we can grasp in this world. Like anything you think about it is already too late, you've already lost it. Like it's actually really mysterious, it's right here and it's experiencing. So what keeps people seeking and believing that they'll find things in the story is that they're not ready to give up on the story yet. So they still believe that something in the story will free them. Like if I do that, I will be free. If I do this, I will be free. It reminds me, I think I've said this many times to you, about the end of The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo is telling Sam that he has to go on the boat to nowhere with Gandalf because he can't live that life anymore. And he says to Sam, you know, you've still got dreams, you've still got ambition, you've still got things to do, you've got family, you've got this life to live out, whereas I don't have that anymore. There's nothing left here for me to do. It sounds quite sad because we're so ingrained in the belief that seeking is freedom. Like trying your best to get somewhere, like going down the motorway, like here I come. On the way to get something, whereas that's not true. So consciousness is also something you can't get. because you are it. It's that which is looking out now. It's that which is here. It's that which is experiencing. And the person, the seeker, can't get that. So even if you seek enlightenment, whatever you seek in this life, you can't actually get it, because who would get it and how would they get it? Because you is something in time. It's a movement in time. Like it's imagination that's coming and going. So you would imagine yourself getting something. Whereas in every moment what's happening is imagination and habit and conditions acting out. So the body is acting out habits and conditions, and then there's this imagination of you as a person getting consciousness or getting freedom. And all of it's story, it's not truth. It's okay to have that story, and it's okay to be motivated by that story, but you're never going to get consciousness. You are it. And waking up is that deep realization, that movement back to a stillness that's here. This expansiveness that's here, because you're often the sense of self and seeking feels like it's inside the body, so you feel limited to inside the body. And then this waking up is this expansion back into things. Like your essence is everywhere and all things, and what we could call love, unconditioned love. Nice. Okay,